Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Here's my review of the Eachine QX95, and right off the bat I'm gonna say that I've been sitting on this review for quite a while. That's why you're gonna see some snow footage. Initially I had some problems binding to this quad with my Fly Sky i6, but I'll get to that in a minute. I probably should note here that this quadcopter was sent to me courtesy of Banggood.com. So thanks to Banggood for sending me this one for review, and let's get into it. You're gonna notice you get your standard Banggood packaging, the sort of garbage bag wrapped around some foam. And is it just me, or does it always seem like you're gonna get anthrax or something when you're touching these bags? I don't know, they have like this weird feel to them. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you open it up and you get the box with some nice graphics on it, and not much of else because this one is a bind and fly, does not come with a transmitter, so the box is pretty small. And inside the box you are going to find a manual. First off, a decent manual, has lots of colored pictures and pretty detailed. Also, you're gonna have some Velcro to secure your battery to the quadcopter, and a battery charger, USB, actually a pretty nice charger, I kind of like it. Also, you have a full set of props and a carbon fiber prop removal tool, which I never really had to use with this one, but it is nice that they give it to you. Also, you're gonna get a balance lead with 2 micro connections so you can charge your batteries using a hobby grade charger. This is definitely a nice feature for this quadcopter. And you're also given 2 spare motors, one clockwise, one counterclockwise. Definitely a plus with this kit. And it does come with 2 600 milliamp hour batteries with the micro low-C connector. Fairly common battery. You probably, if you have a bunch of quads, you probably have a bunch of these lying around like I do, so that's definitely a plus also. And then of course you have your quadcopter, nicely encased in this foam. A little bit difficult to get out, but it is nice that it's protected. And while we're talking about the quad, let's take a look at it. I really like the look of this one. It kind of has sort of an H design, but not quite an X either. It's like almost an XH combination, the way the arms are. And you have your cloverleaf antenna. I have sort of a mixed emotions about cloverleaf antennas. I really like the picture you get out of them, but they are somewhat fragile and they break fairly easily. Although this one, I did not break at all, so hats off to Eachine with this particular one. And there is an LED strip on the back that is not connected right away, and right behind that LED strip is your micro USB connection to plug into CleanFlight. This one does come loaded with CleanFlight, although if you're buying this now you're probably going to have to flash firmware because the version of CleanFlight is an older version. So definitely be aware of that. That is quite a process. I'm not going to go into it. There are other videos online and I will link them in the description on how to do that. So getting into the binding process, as I talked about earlier, a little bit tricky. When I was doing it, I was using a pair of tweezers to try to short out the board with the bind, I'm not sure what you call it, port pad, binding pad I guess it would be called, and didn't realize that you had to have the tweezers or whatever you're using to short it out held the whole time you're doing it, and I kept on taking it off. So I had a hard time binding this and actually had to have my friend Zevi actually help me out doing it, and or more so do it for me. And I'm gonna link Zevi's channel up in the top and also in the description. Check his channel out. He is an excellent FPV freestyle pilot and knows a ton about FPV and quads and drones in general. So definitely check out Zevi's channel. Okay, back to the QX95, and once you get this one bound and all programmed in CleanFlight and everything like that, it is definitely a ton of fun to fly. It is a very fast little quad and it flies really nice, and you can definitely get it moving, especially if you're experienced in FPV. This one will definitely rip through the field for you, rip through the trees, and you can have a lot of fun exploring your environment with it. I was a big fan of this one once I got it flying, but the initial setup, again, is kind of a bit of a downer. So let's talk a little bit about the flight experience and your FPV camera. I definitely like this camera. I'm not exactly sure of the field of view. I want to say like 120, 130, something like that. Very wide field of view, and you're gonna be able to see a lot of your surroundings, so not gonna be too much creeping up on you except for those ghost branches or scraggle, whatever you want to call them. Those are definitely kind of hard to see, but those are hard to see in all of our little micro FPV cameras and even in some of the bigger FPV setups. But the colors of the camera are very saturated, and it is nice to be behind the goggles and flying this quadcopter with the cloverleaf antenna. You get a very strong FPV signal back to your goggles, and it really is just a joy to experience FPV with this little micro quadcopter. Flew this one mostly in stability mode. I did a little bit of horizon mode, and I tried a little bit of acro with it, but when I was flying this quad, I wasn't very good at acro at the time. Wasn't even all that great at horizon either, and I'll get back to that in a moment. But as far as flying this one straight up in stability mode, I had a ton of fun, and I always look forward to flying it. And I think if you purchase this one and you're able to get it in the air, you're gonna be happy with it, but it may not be for the new people as far as setup and all set up in clean flight and everything like that. So this one's definitely more of an intermediate to advanced quad. Durability wise, crashed this one a ton, and it proved to be very durable. Only broke props when I flew this one indoors, and as a result I didn't fly it indoors all that much. But it was kind of odd that I had a bunch of major crashes, I would say, outside. I never even broke a prop with it, but it seems like every time I tried to fly it indoors, I broke a prop. So it was a little weird, but I guess that's just the way it goes. Flight times on the QX95 is very good. I was getting right around 5 minutes depending on conditions and how aggressive I was flying. And for an FPV micro quad, I'd say that's a really good flight time. So it's definitely a satisfying FPV experience with the flight time, with the nice camera, with the cloverleaf antenna that gives you the nice FPV signal. And the transmitter signal, I didn't have any problems with either. I had the FlySky version here, and I was flying it with the i6, and didn't have any sort of dropouts, didn't really try to get too far away from me. Flew in a park once, and I was flying around a building, concrete building, and I was able to go around the building and have the building between me and the quad, and I was still getting a pretty decent picture, and no dropouts with the transmitter. So didn't have any problems at all in that regard. So definitely 2 thumbs up on the FPV signal and the radio signal strength. So unfortunately this one's not flying for me anymore, because one day I was out after a fresh rain and flying it in my backyard and trying it out in horizon mode and doing some flips, and I had a crash, and it crashed into the wet grass, and something shorted out on the board. When I ran over to it after I crashed, I could smell something kind of burning, so I unplugged the battery, and I thought maybe the battery got punctured or something, but it turns out it's something on the board. I think the board itself was fried, because the camera still works, but the board doesn't seem to be working, and it's kind of dead. And every time I plug a battery in, I smell something burning, so we got the magic smoke coming out of the board on this one. So up until that point, it was very durable and really enjoyed this one. So kind of a pity, and I may try to fix it, get a new board, and get it flying again, because I really enjoyed this one. So I'll talk you through some flight footage and give you my thoughts, final thoughts on the quad, and then I'll leave you with the footage and let the voice drop out. So taking off here in this grouping of trees in this local park, and I kind of discovered this park on this particular day, and I really enjoyed flying in between these trees. Seems like it was almost designed for FPV. And then right here I come up, and when I make my turn, this is kind of like a recurring problem I had with this, where if you turn too aggressively and you're in stability mode, it kind of drops on you and like wobbles, and maybe even sometimes over yaws depending on how much wind you're fighting there. So be aware of that when you're flying this one around. And definitely the size of this quadcopter makes it super fun to fly and fairly easy to fly between obstacles like this. And I think I come around here and go through this little pavilion just trying to test my skills. It's kind of funny to look back on this, because I feel like I've improved my FPV flying quite a bit since then. But this was kind of how I fell in love with going out and flying through these parks and around the trees and stuff like that with this QX95. So I definitely recommend it. It is a good beginner quad, but as I said earlier, with the initial setup, it's a little bit difficult. And as you can see, the range on it here is pretty good with the Fly Sky i6. I'm a decent length away from me, and I got some trees and stuff. Signal's cutting in and out a little bit here and there, but nothing too major. And then I come back, and it flies really nice with the wide angle lens. You don't see any jello, and it's not tilted. You could probably rig up something to tilt the lens if you want to fly a little more aggressively and a lot faster, but it's basically straight on the angle of the lens and then coming around this little, I believe that's a bathroom for the park, but in the wintertime obviously it's not open. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So whipping through the trees here and then almost hitting these branches. Some of those little, you know, leafless branches are hard to see in the goggles. Ooh, through the doorway. Oh, yep. So that was kind of cool, right? Definitely love to fly this quad around. I love to see what kind of spaces you can fit it in. As you notice there, I'm standing. I was sitting on a stump that was kind of frozen to the ground, and at one point during the flying here, it kind of came unfrozen and almost tipped over, and I almost fell as it was flying. And I didn't notice there was a little bit of a jitter, I think, when it happened, but I didn't notice it there. And then right here, I got a crash. Pretty decent crash, right? It went flying and everything, but it landed right side up, and then I just picked it right back up and was able to fly. And didn't even break a prop, didn't have any damage to it whatsoever. So durability-wise, this quad is very good. And maneuverability-wise, also very good. I like to fly it in stability mode. Didn't get a whole lot of chance to fly it in acro. My skills in acro have gotten a lot better since I was flying this around, so I would like to try this one again, and I might actually pick up a board for my Tyrannus to see if I can fly it in acro a lot better now. So that's about all I got for the QX95 here. Got this courtesy of Banggood, so thanks again to Banggood for sending me this one for review. And I think if you guys are interested in this, and if you're willing to do some flashing firmware and get some setup, then this is definitely a good quad to buy. If that sort of thing doesn't scare you, then definitely check this one out. It flies really nice, and I didn't really have any problems with it once I got it all set up, other than when, you know, it shorted out when I was flying it with the wet grass. But that's not really the quad's fault, that's my fault. I probably should have done some waterproofing or something like that with it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for the next one, and hit me up in the comments with comments, questions, suggestions, whatever you got. And I'll see you guys in the next video.